First, though, should the government call for a ceasefire in Gaza? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Do get in touch. MPs will vote tonight on whether the UK should call for an end to fighting in the Middle East. Labour and the SNP want the government to follow countries such as Australia and Canada and demand that Israeli hostages are released and both sides put down their weapons immediately. What do you think, Phil? Should the government demand an immediate ceasefire?
Absolutely. Who doesn't want a ceasefire? I'm going to say it for what it is. Netanyahu is out of control. You know, he is punishing. OK, he's attacking Hamas, but in doing so, he is killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. Tens of thousands. I saw on the news just the other night, a little girl being pulled out of the rubble. All her family had been killed in the bombing. She now has no family. She did nothing to attack Israel. She didn't attack Israel. The Palestinian people are being collectively punished. You look at the Gaza Strip, it's just rubble. There's no water, there's no food, there's no hospitals, there's no electricity. It is Netanyahu's clinging on to power because he's not even popular in Israel. As soon as he goes, as soon as the war's over, then he has to go.
Well, he has to go because they'll discover that
they'll get rid of him.
That it happened on his watch.
Yes.
Yeah, October the 7th. Carole, what do you think of what Phil just said?
Well, first of all, you said, who doesn't want a ceasefire? You're absolutely right. And from the start of all this, the Tories have said there should be, the government has said there should be not a ceasefire. They've said there should be a humanitarian ceasefire to get aid in. And also they've called for the release of the hostages. However, what earthly... And I also just want to say, you talked about the little girl who you saw being pulled out of the rubble, that she didn't attack Israel. Have you forgotten the 1,200 people, Phil, who babies were beheaded, women were raped and are still being raped because they're in captivity, people slaughtered. So there was a ceasefire in place. No, hang on. There was a ceasefire in place and Hamas broke that. And talking about Starmer, 4 months ago, Starmer was unequivocal. He said there should not be a ceasefire because he said if there was a ceasefire, this would prevent Israel from dismantling Hamas. He said this would freeze the situation. And he said, and people will not make me change my mind on this. He said, I will not bow to pressure to change my mind. And why has he bowed to pressure? Let me tell you why. Because we've seen what's happening in Rochdale. We've seen these pro-Palestinian marches every week. He realises that not only does his leadership hang on this, but probably the election.
Before you come back in,
let me just say one thing. This is Starmer, typical of Starmer, that he puts political expediency before principle.
Right. There's a bit of wordplay here on types of ceasefire, and we thought we would try and explain this because there are 3 different types that are being talked about. If you have a look over here, we'll show you the 3 different types that are being spoken of. So we've talked about the sustainable ceasefire is one phrase, immediate ceasefire we were discussing, and then there's also temporary ceasefire. Are they different? Is this just wordplay? Let's look first of all at the middle one here, immediate ceasefire, which is the one that's actually causing, as Carole says, causing Labour some problems, actually. So immediate ceasefire simply means that everyone stops fighting now. That's the idea. Does what it says on the tin. The SNP are calling for it in Westminster, and Labour are starting to think they're going to have to agree. And this is a really difficult situation for Keir Starmer. As Carole said, he was trying not to go for this. He's now trying to head off what's called a damaging rebellion over Gaza, because they're now saying they want an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, while the Scottish National Party are calling for a vote on it. So Labour's in a corner on the immediate ceasefire. Separately, you've got the UN. So Algeria here saying, let's have a vote on an immediate ceasefire, the USA holding her hand up to veto it, and the UK ambassador over here staying out of the vote, the only country who did so. So as a result, the Algerian vote did not go through. Now, when you look at the reasons behind the United States vote, their veto, it's because they say they don't want an immediate ceasefire, they want a temporary ceasefire. This is the USA's position here. It's not the right time to call for an immediate ceasefire. They say, we want a temporary ceasefire. What do they mean by that? As soon as practicable, on condition that all hostages are released, they say. And you might say, well, this is just playing with words. But what they don't want is everything to stop while Hamas rearm. That's what they say. Yeah. And Algeria now are furious. that the USA has taken a different position. Finally, one more for you. Sustainable ceasefire. This is actually our government's position here. And you can read about it in this December article by the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who talks about why we're calling for a sustainable ceasefire, not an immediate ceasefire. So again, he says, let's be clear, we don't believe calling right now for a general and immediate ceasefire is the way forward. So Hamas might still attack Israel. And right at the end here, he makes this point about the sustainable ceasefire. We want an end to the killing, not just today, but in the future. So those, isn't it strange? Ceasefire we thought was a simple concept. We've got sustainable, we've got immediate, we've got temporary, we've got three kinds. We sort of know the difference, but my goodness, the politicians are just tying themselves in knots, Phil.
Brilliantly explained, brilliantly, and great graphics. Yes, but I mean, there's no security for Israel until there's peace for everyone there. Of course the hostages should be released, of course. But the idea that this makes killing... every 10 minutes a child is being killed.
No one's saying that, no one is saying that shouldn't be stopped.
Every 10 minutes a child is being killed, an innocent child. It's out of... You talked about the 1,200. It was horrendous I'm Jewish. It was horrendous what happened to the Israelis. I won't take anything away from that.
You know as well as I do that the reason...
This is out of all proportion.
Okay. When you said babies were beheaded, by the way, that's not true, is it?
OK, well... I mean, that's what's been reported, and people who've seen it have reported it.
Well, I think there's been...
But, you know, if
that has been debunked, but I'm just saying that.
You're talking about people who are... people getting killed every 10 minutes or 2 minutes.
Yes.
Hamas hide themselves in hospitals, in schools.
Of
they
course.
know.
I'm not a
they
Hamas
do that on
supporter.
purpose. Hamas don't want a ceasefire. It's naive to think that they do. They
All right.
don't want it. There was a ceasefire in place.
But Carole, look at this. Don't you want us to stop this now? Stop it now.
Of course. But, you know, is anybody silly enough to imagine in this country that a bunch of Labour politicians tying themselves in knots over what words they use about what kind of ceasefire? Do we really think Netanyahu is going to take a damn bit of notice?
Well, it matters inside Labour. No, but it matters to people who vote for Labour here what they think about
and
this.
The international opinion matters, and Biden's policy of arming Israel and trying to appease Israel, hinting that they shouldn't go in as violently as they are, and Netanyahu just laughs at Biden and does absolutely nothing.
He's not laughing at him. He's just saying it's my country. I'm going to do what I want.
Let's go. These pictures are so much coverage of this. We're going to talk to David in Lancashire. Hi, David.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, panel.
So we've got all these different versions of a ceasefire, and Labour are still just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. What do you think?
Jeremy, this is not about scoring cheap political points against Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. This is about stopping the killing of innocent Palestinians. That should stop immediately. They should then go into negotiations between the Israeli government and Hamas about the release of the hostages, about a permanent ceasefire, about the creation of a viable Palestinian state, just like the UK government went into negotiations with the IRA up until and which led to the Good Friday Agreement.
Let me ask you a question, David.
If we can do that.
How can Israel stop while there are still hostages being held?
Well, because a ceasefire is a ceasefire. That means stopping the killing on both sides. You then go into an immediate negotiation for the release of the hostages.
100%.
So Israel can't search for them.
And David, you think that Hamas will stick to that ceasefire, do you?
Well, unlike you, Carole, I believe in populism. I actually believe in sitting down and talking to people.
Yes, so do I. But do you believe Hamas? Do you think Hamas does? I don't.
Well, yes, I do believe Hamas would. If it could,
so they can
secure, if it could secure the basis for a viable Palestinian state. Let's not forget.
David,
what happened on October the 7th was evil and reprehensible. But let's not forget that the Netanyahu government had constantly undermined the Palestinian state.
David, thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much. After the break, we're taking more calls on this. Should the government back calls for an immediate ceasefire? That's the strongest version of a ceasefire. So a little bit more on Labour, because we're talking about it in that graphic. So there's a vote. SNP have called a vote. Scottish National Party wanting an immediate ceasefire. So they've gotten a hardline ceasefire. ceasefire option. And Labour are saying, well, we'd like an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. And Keir Starmer's trying to stop his MPs from supporting the SNP motion because it will be portrayed as a split. And it's ongoingly difficult for Labour, this, even though they're changing position. And yesterday, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, was out and about in her constituency, and she was confronted about it.
Rachel, what's your current position in respect of what's happening in Gaza at the moment?
We should have this conversation separately.
Well, we've tried to have this conversation.
Are you in my constituency?
We've tried through the mosques.
Are you?
Access Katani's been in touch.
Are you? Oh, well, I've seen our chat recently.
Yeah.
Are you in my constituency?
I'm not, but I'm a part. I'm a part. I'm a Muslim and I live in the UK and I pay my taxes. Is there a reason why you can't answer the question?
Because I have a huge number of people contact me, and my surgeries are for constituents.
So does that mean that every time a different person contacts you, you have a different answer?
No.
Because we just simply want one answer.
Oh, it's not that they're really struggling to hold a line here.
Can't even answer the question.
I think that same lady
can't even answer the question. Ordinary people, normal people in this country, the British people out there, this kind of detail of what does it matter? It's a ceasefire. Let's have a ceasefire. Let's stop the killing. We talked earlier about the hostages. And everyone feels for them. The Israeli army shot 3 of their own hostages. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Let's have another call. James in Tayside, what do you think of this ceasefire debate? There's all kinds of different kinds of ceasefire now.
Well, there shouldn't be any different types of ceasefire. We shouldn't be voting for it. It's a straightforward case. Let's stop the fighting now.
But what if Hamas don't observe it?
Well, I don't know. That's the other thing. We just don't know what can be done. But the first thing in war that goes out the window is the truth. So I haven't got the facts of what's actually happening, the true facts. I don't know. People are blaming Hamas. Hamas leaders were, I can't believe they were that stupid to actually attack Israel.
Well, they may have wanted this. They may have wanted this for all kinds of reasons to do with Saudi Arabia about to recognise Israel, and also. Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Aziz in Southampton. What do you think?
The ceasefire should be called immediately. All the ceasefire means you stop killing people. Should have been called a long time ago. And if the situation was, would you have allowed, if 10,000 Ukrainian children would have been killed, would you have the same sort of complicated? It's nothing complicated.
But Aziz, the problem is we can't enforce a ceasefire. This is not our country and it's not our war. And that's why all this posturing in this country...
We can call for it, though.
Well, you can call for it. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
But you don't think it's right to call for it?
No, I want the fighting to stop like everyone else does. But I just think this is all about politics. This is all... You know, Starmer saw what happened in Rochdale last week. He's been told that to galvanise, to help him during the election, should be fought on this issue, on the single issue of Palestine. He's been told that will help his election chances. Why didn't he talk? Why wasn't he as adamant about a ceasefire 2 weeks ago?
This is something where...
The killing was still happening. Yeah, but this is about...
If something's happening in the world, we've all got a responsibility.
Why didn't we do it 2 weeks ago?
Again, you say politics. Prince William has now got involved. Have you seen this? Prince William spoke about it yesterday. He released a statement saying, I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. There's a desperate need for increased humanitarian support to Gaza. It's critical that aid gets in and the hostages are released. Sometimes, he goes on, it's only when faced with the sheer scale of human suffering and the importance of permanent peace is brought home. That's quite a thing.
It's a big thing. It's a big mistake as well, I think, on his part. But anyway, the point is,
I agree on that one.
We tell Putin every single day to get out of Ukraine. We call for a ceasefire there. No one's taking any notice. Putin's not taking any notice.
We have a seat on the Security Council. We have a veto there, which we've stopped using. The international community to come together, put pressure on America. America is arming Israel. Israel is the most professional army in the world, and they are killing thousands upon thousands of Palestinians every day.
All right.
And we need to stop
that. Ruth is in London. Let's hear from Ruth. Hello, Ruth.
Hello.
What do you think? Is it time to just say there needs to be a ceasefire now?
I'm furious with programs like you. You know, like Carole said, you have no authority to go and tell Israel what to do. It is a democratic country, unlike Gaza. And, you know, that they have to do what's right for their own people. I had a cousin that was killed through the tunnels. He was one of 3 soldiers. The Palestinians came through the tunnels about 8 years ago and they shot him. He was 19 years old. They have to carry on and dismantle the tunnels. You know, Britain is not part of the British Empire anymore. You know, mind your own business.
Well, we have to talk about everything here. That's sort of what we do, Ruth. And it's good, isn't it, to ventilate all these things. And I'm really sorry about your cousin as well.
Me too, Ruth, you know. But it is true. We're sitting here in a country where there is no war. We're sitting in a nice warm rooms and in the House of Commons, nice and safe there. And we're telling other people what to do. We can't do that.
Got a right
no, we
to
can't.
Do that.
We might have a right, but don't expect a result because you're not going to get one.
Ultimately, pressure works. America put pressure on Britain. We got peace in Northern Ireland.
This has been going
International
on.
pressure works. You know what? My mother escaped from the Holocaust, and my family, her uncle and grandmother, were murdered at Auschwitz in the gas ovens. She used to say, bless her, that Jewish people more than anyone else should respect the rights of the Palestinian people because we know what it's like when that doesn't happen. And I will carry that to the end of my days.
What do you say to that, Ruth?
The Panorama program. Did Hamas respect the rights of the Palestinian people when they were taking all the money from the EU and all those countries? Instead of spending it on the Palestinians for food and aid, they used it to build these tunnels. Is that really helping the Palestinian people?
All right.
We would help by getting rid of Hamas and then helping to build up Gaza.
I hear you. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you. Leslie in London, hi. Do you think it's time for a ceasefire, Leslie?
I think the hostages, they have to be part of that ceasefire. Yeah. I think it's right that we're concerned about the children that are being killed and who are being orphaned. But I think sometimes people like Hamas, when they've got another agenda and they've been stockpiling cash and doing other things and using money that was for a good cause for a different cause, and it's been allowed. That's the thing I don't understand. When people have been aware of this and nobody's been stopping it or highlighting it, and still in allowing the money to go into that nation so that they can commit to building.
Well, it's true. Hamas have done Palestinians no favours, and certainly the October the 7th attack brought the fire of fury raining down on Gaza, and that didn't help anyone either. But in a way, Leslie, the issue is whether you should protect innocent civilians in Gaza against the consequences of what Hamas did.
How can we do that?
Can you do that? Can you do that when Hamas are not concerned about the people themselves? Hamas have said that they're willing to do whatever it takes, and they will put people in their own people in difficult situations and allow them to be killed.
OK, we have to stop and go to our break. Thank you, Leslie, so much. Thanks for all your calls. After the break, is it time for a general election? That's after the former Tory MP Scott Benton is expected to lose his seat as well. Instead of a by-election, why not just have a full-on general election? 0207 862 2222. See you in a moment.